Everybody. Super excited to be here and to to kick this off. We are having kind of our fourth or fifth Leafy seminar right now. So it's going to be on real estate and the cannabis industry. I'm super excited to have everybody here. We've got a great lineup for our lunchtime seminar here. I'm talking about real estate and the cannabis industry, which is a hot topic. It's something that getting a lot of people kind of excited may or may not be the right term, but certainly raising a lot of questions as people think about what does it mean to kind of establish oneself as a business. One of the things you definitely need. It's like, where are you going to set up your operation? All different types. Looking forward to having this conversation. We are going to jump right into the housekeeping. So Leafy Seminars is a seminar series that we created about 18 months ago, really to bring together professionals of all different stripes to the cannabis industry. And just kind of connect the dots between what is it that cannabis entrepreneurs need in order to flourish, in this economy. Not just in terms of selling the product or growing the product, which is all good stuff too. But what are those nuts and bolts that are just a standard bearer in all industries, and there's only no different for cannabis. But it's just a chance for us all to get together and talk about these things. So this is a list of all the things that we have or hope to cover in future seminars and in our past ones. Certainly if you have any ideas about what you want us to cover in the future, please let us know. Then in the survey that will come out at the end, we'll give you a chance to talk about that. Quick question before we begin. Wondering where all people are coming from. So I'm going to ask this question here. What industry are you aligned with? Are you from the cannabis world, real estate, or another? I'll give folks just a minute to do this. And in the meantime, I want to thank today's sponsor, Prince Bell. They're a full service law firm in Boston, Massachusetts, but doing work across New England. And Adam, you can correct me or fill in later during your remarks, the scope of work that you do. But Prince Bell is a great firm and been a supporter and a sponsor of Leafy Seminars. And we're glad to have Adam on today from Prince Bell. So some bit of housekeeping here. Our speakers, will have about 10 minutes to do their work, do their spiel. Please feel free to submit your questions, in the chat function here, and we'll respond to them during at the end of the webinar. Again, an evaluation survey will be available for you at the end, and we really do appreciate your feedback. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to end our polling here, and we've got it's about a quarter from the cannabis space, a quarter from real estate, and about half from other. So other obviously is very broad, but we have that equal representation from cannabis and the real estate world. So this is actually a perfect just what we're hoping to get. So let's see, just quick introduction. So just myself, I'll be very, very brief on this, but my name is Sam Milton. I may have probably met a handful of you at various points in time. Enlighten Your Grow is my cannabis focused service offering. We specialize in sustainability and energy advisory services. And when we're not doing these, we're helping cultivators and growers and other companies in the cannabis space operate more efficiently and more productively, and making sure that they're doing right by their investors and shareholders and all that, and not wasting their energy. Skipped ahead. All right. First up is Brent Maurice. Brent's with F.O. Bailey, real estate based up here in Maine. This is contact information. I'll also have contact information on the last slide, so no worry about copying all this down now. But Brent, can you hear me? Are you on?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. And you can start your video too. All right, great. So I'll advance the slide. I'll move over to your master slide, and yeah, hop on in when you're ready.
Sweet, sweet. So thank you, Sam, for
All
having
right.
me on here. It's a pleasure. I've been working with FO Bailey for over 2 years now. We kind of specialize in all things, but my kind of sector is cannabis real estate, and I work with buyers and sellers on both sides, as well as investors. So let's, I guess, get right into it. We're going to do a little bit of a real estate market overview here and kind of look at the landscape of Maine at a 30,000 square foot um, overview. And so to kind of get right into it, we got a shortage of commercial industrial inventory. Demand post COVID has only gotten stronger. There's some predictions in early 2019 that the industrial market was going to plateau and we were going to see a dip in demand. And since COVID, the industrial market has only gotten more hot and more competitive. Investors are transitioning out of mixed use commercial, retail, and office space and are pouring into industrial real estate as it's a much stronger asset class and it has just a much better trajectory over time here given the nature of what we're going to be looking at with the impact of COVID and the uncertainty of when a lot of these businesses are going to be able to return. And it's also transitioned a lot of businesses even further into the e-commerce space. So, the competition for warehouse and industrial space has only grown since the pandemic has hit. And that has, impacted cannabis tenants and investors that are looking for property as, they're competing with traditional tenants as well now who are willing to pay more and are basically, it's war out there for space. There's just not enough available and there's not enough being added to the inventory in the southern Maine landscape here because of the expense with construction costs and development cost. Um, and then according to CBRE, for every 1 billion of e-commerce sales results in additional 1.25 million square feet of industrial demand. And this is going to further exacerbate that supply demand issue we have nationally, but also here locally. And we really need more developers to come in and start building industrial space to add to the overall inventory. Just because if you look at the landscape of the market right now, there's just not enough out there for cannabis tenants and investors to acquire and use. Landlords hold still hold all the leverage and can remain selective in selecting tenants. There's been a shift to providing proof of adequate financials for cannabis companies as basically a prerequisite to even see space. So, given the nature of this industry and how young it is, it's really hard to vet tenants based off any annual history because most people within this space, are dealing with a cash business. So it's hard to look back 5, 10 years and look at statement of balances and profit and loss statements to really determine the long-term viability of a tenant. So, your ability to prove financials is really your best advantage in, when you're going to bid on space or you're trying to lease space, because that really gives a clear picture for a landlord on your ability to pay back that lease term and, your viability as a long-term tenant. Um, Landlords are getting more demanding in lease terms. They're defining trade fixtures and equipment that is fixed to the building differently. Obviously, in cannabis, your HVAC equipment really is a trade fixture, and this is kind of different from other traditional tenants that it's not as tied to the business. So a really good example is a dentist leasing space. They have a dentist chair that is fixed to the floor, but the dentist owns that chair, and at the end of the lease term, he can take that because it's a it's a trade fixture. And with cannabis tenants now, landlords are looking at the HVAC equipment that's tied and fixed to the physical building as part of their own improvements. So they would own that at the end of the lease term. And you have to be really careful in how you're wording your lease terms and really protecting your personal property and equipment through lien waivers. And landlords are interpreting this in different ways. So it's something to think about from the tenant side when you are going in to negotiate your lease, to make sure that you have some sort of waiver on your trade fixtures. So at the end of that term, you can take it with you. The best deals still remain off market. So if you're competing in the public marketplace on, a LoopNet or an NECPE, it's going to be extremely competitive and you're going to be dealing with multiple offers. Your best avenue for finding the best space is going to be finding it pre-market and identifying a space that works for you and trying to get, directly in touch with a landlord to see if there's, viability in leasing the space, or having good broker representation that has a strong network that can identify space for you that's going to work off market. A good example of this is 23 Washington Ave in Scarborough. It's the former main indoor cart building. It was a standalone industrial building that went off market and never even hit the market. And right now they're in talks with some different cannabis companies. And in fact, Amazon's also interested in it. And they are just kind of weighing the options. But that was one of the better deals that's come across in the last year that never even hit the market. That was really viable for bigger cannabis companies to acquire and move into. Competing offers and large demand from both end users and speculative investors is really driving the kind of lease negotiations. When you have these kind of competing offers coming in on a singular space, landlords are basically forced to have offer deadlines with highest and best. And that's really just become par for the course for most deals here in Greater Portland, where you're going to have a set deadline to present your best offer, and the landlord is usually choosing between 5 and 10 strong offers. And this kind of goes to financials, where if you're a young startup or you're a cannabis company that doesn't have those kind of annuals to really show, your best tool is having strong financials, whether it's from the investments from the investor or from your own personal financials that maybe aren't cannabis related. Lease prices continue to increase, as do construction costs. Lease rates are now consistently in the $6.50 to $7 a square foot triple net range for traditional tenants. $11 to $12 a square foot triple net is the average going rate for cannabis friendly spaces with adequate power and water infrastructure. And the industry still is viewed as high impact, so we do still have that cannabis tax on your traditional lease rate. And I do see that $6.50 to $7 a square foot lease rate for traditional tenants creeping up to the $10 to $11 range here in the near future. And for cannabis companies, I see it going even further as lease rates fall, construction costs and replacement costs from the development side. So we've seen a shift in the last 5 years where traditional warehouse space was going for anywhere from $3.50 to $5 a square foot, depending on how turnkey it is. Now we're in that $7 range, and cannabis companies are up in that $11 to $12 range. And I really don't see it going anywhere. So again, timing, I think, is huge there. If you can identify and acquire space and lock it up for a longer lease term, that is my advice and suggestion, as to insulate you from market changes down the line. because those lease rates will continue to creep up as demand only increases. Small, medium-sized spaces are in the highest demand and continue to have the most competition. The sweet spot seems to be 2,500 to 10,000 square feet. This has a wide variety of users, from an extraction company, an edible manufacturer, to maybe a medical caregiver that's coming out of their smaller basement grow, or a smaller 500 to 1,000 square foot grow, and now they are moving into a bigger space to meet market demand. And so from the landlord side and the investment side, those type of spaces, or having a larger space that's cut up into different suites, really gives you a large tenant diversity and insulates you from having maybe one long-term tenant that if something happens, you're going to have a period of time where you're going to have a vacancy where you have to acquire a new tenant, and you're going to have an interruption in that cash flow. Financing remains limited in the space. Access to financing to fund real estate acquisitions for cannabis companies really remains the largest hurdle for companies to free themselves from leasing, and it hinders their ability to execute sale leaseback transactions, which would give them the ability to acquire immediate capital to invest in their infrastructure and to really time the market. We're in an industry right now where basically timing's everything. And the sooner you can get into a space, the sooner you can get up to capacity, the sooner you can fill that market demand. And, I predict within the first year, we will have large product shortages. And I do not think, given the nature of how many towns have opted in here in Maine, we're going to have an adequate supply for the given demand. And a lot of these towns have limited licenses, and their zoning has limited the real estate. So there's really only so many viable locations across, the opted-in municipalities that are even going to be functional for a cannabis company. So, you're looking at, forecasts, the sooner you can get into a space, the sooner you can lock it in, the better off you're going to be here long-term to fill that market demand. And then navigating municipalities, adds another layer to the process in itself. The most important thing, I think, when you're going into identifying real estate for cannabis related use is understanding the town's landscape and ordinance first before you even start looking at property. A lot of towns have caps now. Towns like South Portland, they have a sensitive use analysis you need to do that is pretty extensive, and you have to identify all businesses around you that fall into those sensitive use categories. A town like Portland, we have really no timeline on when they're going to even start approving adult use businesses as they're working through their retail applications right now. Towns like Scarborough and Gorham are only allowing cultivation and manufacturing. Gorham has a cap on licenses. And then once you go to the southern part of the state, there's only, Berwick and Elliott that have opted in as far as coastal towns. So you have kind of a barren stretch with no opted in towns, and towns that aren't even approving new medical caregivers to operate out of commercial spaces unless they're in an existing space that's grandfathered. So I remain bullish on Lewiston, Auburn, and Androscoggin County as a whole. I think they have been really the friendliest from my experience to deal with. They're very open to it, and they've welcomed cannabis companies with open arms, and they've made the process very streamlined and straightforward. And there's a large availability of industrial property there, older mills that have the adequate power and water infrastructure. And the lease rates there have not yet crept up to that $11, $12 range across the board, unless you're finding something that's like Class A industrial and perfect turnkey space. So they're still hovering for cannabis in that $650 to $850 range. I think it remains a very good area to look in and to keep your eyes on if you're a larger scale cultivator and you don't have a retail need and you don't need to be in the southern part of the state dealing kind of with the municipalities down here. I would go towards municipalities welcoming you with open arms. And then I just wanted to highlight a recent.
Hey, Brent, can I pause you for a minute?
Yeah,
And let Adam kind of jump in, come with some of his reactions to your
yeah.
observations, and then yeah, in the Q&A, kind of throw anything else in there. But this, I mean, I'm so glad that I had you come join us for this, because clearly there's a ton of just of knowledge and insights that you bring that can really kind of help inform where people are going with this. And the industry is dynamic, it's changing, and there's a lot more you could say, clearly. And so it makes me think that there's probably this bodes well for a 201 level discussion as a future point.
Yep.
But if you don't mind, I'm gonna ask Adam to jump in at this point, if you're all right with that. Adam, can you hear us? You on?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Oops, this is bumping around. Excellent. Yeah, Adam's a lawyer at Prince Bell in the cannabis, real estate, and telecommunications, and renewable energy departments. Busy guy. We're really grateful to have him for this time. And yeah, Adam, I'll kind of let you kind of riff off of what Brent said, but also I know you've got your own points that you want to bring. So I'll bring your slide up and let you have at it. About 10 minutes.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and thanks to Sam, Milton, and the group there for having me on. Again, I've done a couple of these with Sam and Leafy, and we're always changing the slides at the last minute because everything changes relatively quickly in this industry. It's like dog years when you work in this industry, what I tell people. But and obviously, Brent, thanks very much. A great resource there. I mean, he's your first stop, right? If anyone's looking to get into the industry and needs real estate, clearly has a great finger on the pulse, especially in the main market. So what Sam asked me to do is kind of take it about 10,000 feet or 5,000 foot view of real estate structures in general, what we've seen in our practice. Like Sam said, I work in a firm, a mid-sized Boston law firm called Prince Bell. We have a cannabis practice as part of our real estate practice. Is probably 12 to 15 attorneys just in that practice that touch cannabis on any given day from conception to completion, and helping finding real estate in locations to filing state, Maine, Massachusetts applications, to walking through the provisional and final licensures, and then to getting shovels in the ground. So kind of cover it all. What I've seen from a structure standpoint is certainly the lease, and we represent both property owners and entity operators, and the lease, long-term lease agreements seem to be mostly popular for a number of reasons. But we've also seen obviously purchases of sales, and then we've seen some different types of other structures like sale leasebacks, and where the property owner may get involved as ownership in the cannabis entity. But in terms of leases, and to kind of jump on what Brent was saying, there certainly are a number of provisions in the agreements that we have seen over the years that both landlord and tenants need to focus on in connection with cannabis. I mean, from a high level, first of all, it's not federally legal, right? So there may be some concerns from a property owner where you would want to make sure as a tenant and a property owner that if you do have a mortgage, for example, that mortgage company is okay with this type of use. We have seen where clients come to us where they've spent a few months negotiating a lease. They're in the process with the town, approval process, and the landlord then realizes that their mortgage company is not going to allow them to do that. So we've seen it less and less as banks get more comfortable with this, but a federally FDIC insured bank has a strong argument to say that you can't do that. So that's certainly a very concerning challenge that we've seen. I have up here is the force majeure provision, and that kind of goes and has been tweaked significantly since the pandemic. I mean, this gives you an example of what that force majeure provision should include nowadays: governmental regulations and preemptions and pandemics, epidemics. I mean, diseases. You should be really including all those in there in the event that those occur, and there's not the ability to perform. So, for example, if you are a cannabis retail facility in downtown and a pandemic hits and you're not essential, you're not considered essential, so you have to shut down. There should be a provision in your agreement that allows you to not have to pay rent in the event that happens, similar to if the facility burns down. So those are the things we're seeing. We're trying to stay on top of those. There's changes every day. But when you combine the cannabis industry and how quickly it moves with the pandemic, and then everything that's going on up in Maine with the legality of this and how quickly I think the movement is relatively quickly compared to Massachusetts. The state is working. It's really a fast-paced industry. So and these things change. Default. Another example in leases you should pay attention to is default and damages. If you're a same scenario, you're a retail establishment and you have defaulted, well, the landlord's typical damages could be possession. But in the cannabis world, because it's so highly regulated and illegal and legal in certain instances, that really shouldn't be or cannot be a means for damages to make the landlord whole. In Massachusetts, I know that the Cannabis Control Commission will not approve leases that allow landlords to enter into properties and take possession, because those landlords have most likely not have the license requirements to acquire and possess legal cannabis. So, I mean, that's another provision that you folks are going to consider when you're negotiating leases. In general, leases are more unstable than a typical commercial lease for the reasons that we talked about. And I have here again, the mortgage companies may not allow it. In terms of purchasing, like I said, from a 5,000-foot view, it makes more sense to purchase, so you don't have those unstable issues. But the challenge there is the ability to have capital to purchase property, and that, or the ability to obtain debt or equity to purchase the property. However, we've seen as more banks get comfortable with banking with cannabis entities, that the purse strings, so to speak, for some banks are starting to loosen up, and they are distinguishing between the operations of the establishment and the property, and allowing some entities to take a debt on just the property, understanding that the property would be used for cannabis, so and to purchase it. So there are some distinctions that the banks are starting to make. As far as sale and leaseback, I mean, that's really just a way to raise capital for establishments. However, you do need the property to begin with. So, we haven't seen that as much. What we have seen is where a entity would start discussions with the property owner. That property owner may not want to lease to the entity, but the entity does not have the means to purchase the property. So there's a partnership there, and the property owner becomes part of the cannabis entity. There's a whole slew of challenge. I wouldn't say challenges, but things that you need to consider when that occurs. If from a state level, the property owner is going to need to go through. It depends upon the percentage and how it's structured, but the property owner may need to go through the background requirements. It's consistent and similar to the entity ownership structure as well. So you want to consider that. You want to basically vet your property owner. The property value would be in question, and how that plays into the pro forma and forecasted values of the facility. Is there a mortgage on the property, and how that affects the property value and the percentages, and what percentage is that property owner going to want to be involved in the entity, in the operating agreement. So those are all the kinds of things that we look at. I know that Brent hit on a bunch of things that I could certainly help answer, and questions what I've seen. But I think we're getting to a point where we need to hand it over to you guys to ask some questions.
Great, thanks, Adam. That was fantastic. Yeah, clearly a lot of considerations that folks need to think about as they kind of enter into real estate transactions for a cannabis business. So just a reminder to folks, please do drop your questions in. I am aware that we are at 12:33. I can hang out a little bit longer about Adam and Brent, but clearly there's a lot going on here that we want to get into. And we can only, we're scratching the surface. But a question that came in is, what is the solution to the industrial demand in the next 10 years? Maybe Brent has a question for you. Do you have any, a sense in terms of, I guess maybe the answer is building out more facilities, but, in the absence of kind of, a huge increase in supply of facilities in real estate. What do you think there might be an answer to there?
I think it's a two-layered answer, where you got the municipality component of this and opening up industrial zoning, and looking at old brownfield sites and looking at dilapidated property that can be renovated, a municipality offering a TIF or some sort of tax credit to redevelop older inventory within their town, and then from the development side, offering advantages for a developer to come in and put up the property. And that's really the biggest component that we deal here in New England, in Maine especially, is the NIMBY component, not in my backyard. Yeah. And you're seeing that right now in South Portland, where, there's a Surfside development, and a gentleman, has been working on a deal there since 2005 to put up a multifamily. And he cut down, he had to cut down trees to clear the site. And now the town is retroactively, basically going back to September 1 and all building permits, and saying that you're going to have to basically pass some sort of feasibility study, and you prove that you're not cutting down a large amount of trees, and you're not affecting the surface parking. And that really, I think, is Maine's the biggest stagnator in larger scale development, and bigger developments, bigger developers coming into the state and adding the stock that we really need. I think build-to-suits are going to be commonplace down the line here. Tenants signing leases before a structure has even gone up, and customizing property to their needs. But I think it's really a two-part solution, where you have that dance you play with the municipality, and figuring out how you can navigate the municipality and the town council of the municipality, and identifying sites for redevelopment that may otherwise just be unused or a brownfield. And the industrial can go into the armpits of towns, so to speak. So it's not, we're not redeveloping Main Street, but it's
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
zoning to allow it.
Yeah, just to jump on Brent's point, that's a really good point. I mean, we see it, right, Sam, in the renewable energy. We've seen it in the renewable energy industry, especially in solar, where um, the at least in Massachusetts, where they're saying, hey, we don't want you to really go on any green fields anymore, but we want you to go on rooftops and brownfields. And so I think that the industry needs to, the cannabis industry, if we can make a rationale there, is going to need to lobby the municipalities that haven't opted in to opt in to free up some space and to see what else is out there for with the existing infrastructure. Just to Brent's point.
Yeah, no, it's for sure. It's fascinating, and I mean it's tough times just because there is so little supply, and kind of what supply there is it is in huge demand. An interesting question came in from Andrea. She asked, have the presenters seen companies building a cannabis business park? So I guess kind of like a campus of buildings that serve different purposes, for the cannabis industry. If so, what are the challenges, recommendations for those interested in this area? Brett, have you seen any folks developing cannabis business parks?
Yeah, there's one on Mystique Way. It's the first Canna subdivision, I believe, in the state. In the town of Auburn, basically, getting approval there. It's a staff committee review. It's a 2-week process, and they're selling parcels right now. But that's the only one in the state that I know. This is huge out west. If you go to California, there's entire towns that have basically created specific cannabis zoning. And I do think down the line, Maine will have that, and it's going to come from the development side, where developers go in and work with the town, and they start looking at the comprehensive land use code and seeing and identifying locations that they could have cannabis specific zones. I mean, the closest I've seen for a town around here, it's not cannabis specific, but with Gorham has agricultural industrial zoning, where they're allowing it, but there's nothing other than what's in Auburn right now that has a clear and easy path to approval. That's just a staff committee review, opposed to having to go through site plan review and planning board approval, which, given COVID as well, it's like it can be a 4 to 6 month process.
Yeah. And in terms of having a cluster or a campus with multiple different facilities, I imagine that increases the complexity, of going through the permitting process and licenses, because it's not just one business, but it's often multiple. Unless maybe you have one operator that does everything, which may be the case in Auburn.
Well, yeah, it's really the developer is the one that's driving the ship there and was able to identify the site, create that subdivision within the town, and then make it easy for prospective buyers, tenants, and build what they need. And he's offering to do build to suits as well. But again, it goes back to Lewis and Auburn. It's the municipalities want it. They're encouraging you to come there. That we have not seen yet in Greater Portland, and a lot of that has to do with maybe they don't feel that they need it, or they want larger scale cultivation to go up north and go into older stock. I mean, Canuvo in their building in Bridgeton is an old knitting mill. So companies that are here at a larger scale are all redeveloping old mill stock. The Sanford mill. As well, that's no one wanted to do anything with that, and now it's basically full of cannabis companies. So cannabis companies are really they never get the Class A, Class B industrial space. They're dealing with the lower grades that they have to rework, and that's just the nature of the beast right now, because they need space, and your the direction of your company hinges on basically the political landscape of a municipality.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned kind of these different classes of buildings in our work, where we do basically cultivation facility performance audits. We'll go into these buildings and kind of and help the cultivator understand if their facility is efficient, kind of what their score is, so to speak. And yeah, these warehouses that have been repurposed that clearly were not designed for indoor horticultural kind of applications have a ton of problems. And that's a whole other discussion. And Adam, I don't know if I heard you trying to chime in, but I've got a question. I've got, maybe we're room for one more question. Did you want to jump in real quickly with that on what Brent said, or do you want to?
No, I would just say in terms of like a cannabis campus, I know that there are two in Massachusetts. One's in Athol, off Route 2 in Massachusetts. I can't remember the name of the entity there. And another is in Freetown, Mass. And that company is Can America.
American.
I'm sorry, American. Yeah, Can America. And and they have an interesting business model there, but some of it's kind of a hybrid. This traditional indoor grow, but then there's a hybrid type of grow there as well with hard cover, full walled buildings, but a glass roof. So I would suggest that folks that are asking that question take a look at those companies and see what they think. But yeah, the business model is simple. They rent out, they sublease space to people to entities that get their own licenses to operate.
Yeah, and those are purpose-built, hybrid greenhouses, and maybe that model works also for repurposed warehouse, in downtown Springfield or Worcester, or Auburn. All right, so the one more question, and either of you can take it, although the questioner addressed Brent. Have you seen many would-be adult use cannabis businesses who cornered good sites early round of money during the kind of the regulatory kind of slow rollout? What happens if somebody gets a nice spot, signs a lease saying we're in, we're going to start making money, next year, but it takes years and years before things come together for actually start, operating, getting into revenue. What happens in that case? And have you seen that? And what are some of the maybe cautionary tales for folks to take away, because as they're kind of in this period where they're waiting to be able to get their license, and they're still paying rent on these properties?
It's a cost analysis. I mean, I think for cannabis companies, timing is more important than price, and that's what I always tell my tenants that I'm representing is, what is the need for the space is larger for you than another company, given your need to get to market and your need to get the capacity to fill demand. So that is exactly what's happening. There's companies in Portland that have been paying rent for almost a year and a half just to hold retail space, just a really valuable retail space. And it's this, industrial is a little bit different, where you can at least get operationally medical, and you can kind of pay the bills medical and then transition into adult use. Now that we have a sales date and we have a trajectory for them to do so. But I would say for like a retail location that is strictly for adult use, your option is basically to pay rent. A deal I did in Scarborough, while they were going through the municipal process for approvals, they were paying option payments that would get credited towards rent if they did get approved, and then a portion of that became non-refundable. So you really have to get creative with your landlord. And from the landlord side, I mean, you have to understand their position as well. They're taking the space off the market. They're no longer marketing the space. They're turning away other, traditional tenants that don't have all the complexities that a cannabis company has. So, they feel, they need to be compensated and covered for that loss of time. So there's, again, that give and take. And I think it goes back to, again, strong financials. If you can prove your value as a tenant long term, then a landlord's going to be more apt to work with you on these things, opposed to holding you over the coals, so to speak, and not working with you, and basically you full rent with no refund. So I think it really comes down to the relationship that you have with the landlord, and the landlord's relationship with the tenant, and working together to find a solution to that problem in terms of not knowing when you're going to get approved, and then
Yeah.
the company really doing a cost analysis and really making sure that the space is 100% workable for your needs, and it's worth, maybe paying a year's worth of rent without operating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that, it makes sense to maybe step back a little bit. Don't jump into, an agreement with the landlord unless you've kind of done your homework. You really realize kind of what's at stake. Be practical and be realistic in terms of, you may not see a single dime of revenue, for a year or two or more. And kind of have a good relationship, open dialogue kind of with your tenant or prospective tenant, kind of as you're going through the process, and probably and kind of work with the professional to help you through this process.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of I now we probably should wrap this up. But Adam, do you have any kind of final words? And before you kind of you comments, want to say, I think everybody, this has been great. Thank you so much for being a part of this. You see our contact information on this. We will send a copy of these slides and recording to folks who can kind of have this to go back and kind of and review. But we definitely kind of look forward to helping you kind of all kind of figure out your where you need to go in the real estate and cannabis world, and broadly just kind of in your cannabis operation. So Adam, any final kind of words you want to share?
Sure.
Based on what Brent said or otherwise.
Right. I think the underlying the undercurrent, whatever you want to call it here, is do your homework before you sign on the dotted line. I mean, this industry needs real estate, and you need to understand the challenges and complexities of obtaining and having the rights to that real estate. I think that's the simplest way to put it, and use folks like Brent and myself to give you a hand with figuring that stuff out.
Yeah, that's great. No, I appreciate that. And again, I think this has been a fantastic conversation. We scratched the surface. There's a ton more out there to learn and to share. So those opportunities come up from us or others to help you along the way. We'll be in touch. But thank you all for coming. And again, there'll be a survey coming out your way for you to let us know how we did, how we can do better. And I look forward to seeing you at the next Leafy seminar. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you.